When you meet somebody new and they ask, what do you do? How do you usually respond?
Great question. It depends on their age, and sometimes I'll say, I work in technology. And then I'll just be like, please don't ask any questions because it's just going to be a rabbit hole. But often what I'll do is I have links literally on my phone, and I'll just bring up a video real quick because I'm just like, this is what I do. But um, essentially, I'll say we work in immersive technology, and what that means is we work in augmented reality and virtual reality, and we do experiences that use a headset. So you put it on your face and you play virtual games. But we do a lot in the marketing and advertising side, and that's with your phone. You scan the little QR codes like you would use to pull up a menu, and you get a 3D interactive experience.
Yeah, do you think more people, like in terms of general public, do you think they accept the benefits of being in a spatial computing world, in an immersive world compared to the 2D screen? Or do you still get a lot of questions in terms of why would I need to do this?
I do, and they're fair questions, right?
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, it's like we're still trying to answer that question with every single project that comes our way, which is why augmented reality? Why can't this just be a website? Why can't this just be a commercial? And and to be honest, like sometimes I really try to bring it back. Like, why augmented reality? What is it? What is it good for? And depending on the audience, I might literally bring it to sports, and I'll say, if it's in America, American football, I'll say, that little yellow line that's across the first down line. That's
That's not
augmented
really
reality.
there.
Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so that's augmented reality. Yeah, because it's like it's virtual, and then you start to create like an understanding of like, oh, okay, cool. So those IKEA apps where you like drop a couch in your living room, like, yeah, that's a great use of augmented reality. It's being able to spatially understand something that's giving you context to help you make a buying decision. That's a good use of it. But it is a question that we are constantly asking ourselves, and one that I think the industry is constantly figuring out.
You just gave me an idea. So it's a way to visually represent something that we normally, without it, we would have to imagine. Because at first online,
Right.
for decades before this technology, for decades as a football fan myself, we just had to imagine it. When I'm watching the game, I just imagine it's there. But now we can see it.
Exactly. Exactly. And it adds its real value. It's the same thing with baseball and seeing like, where did the pitch land? Is it inside or outside the box? And I think fundamentally that's a good place to start, where there's that value. And then you can start to get into you know, the fun, the excitement, the mixed reality components of it, and those types of things that add the magical layer to it. But fundamentally, I think just getting people to wrap their minds around why in the first place is a good place to start with it.
First, all right, I'm looking at this Ben and Jerry's video. Can you tell me what's happening
Yeah,
here?
100%. So Ben and Jerry's was exciting. So we Adobe came to us, and they were rolling. So Arrow had been around for a while. So those who don't know, Arrow's like it's an augmented reality tool. It used to be app based, but then Adobe was coming to us to say, hey, we're going to go web based, and it's going to be an app clip. So we talked to Ben and Jerry's, and they're like, yeah, this is perfect. Like, it matches with our whimsical nature of the company, and like, but we really want to tell this story for Sundays. And Sundays is this new ice cream brand that is only coming out in the UK, and kind of the USP for it is it's basically Ben and Jerry's, but it's got this like inch of cream at the top. Anyways, what we really like to do is we like to start with a problem, and there was two problems that we had to solve. One, Arrow has limitations with what it's capable of. It has very big limitations with the interactivity, and what kind of like gamifications and physics components that you can have. Two, with Ben and Jerry's, their problem was that people weren't using their online delivery service, and people didn't know why Sundays was fun. They're like, people buy it and they're like, oh, there's cream on the top of it. They don't even know that cream is the reason that they're buying it. So what we did is we came up with the Rube Goldberg machine idea, which is essentially create the sundae, right? So ultimately, it had to be very simple, and we had to do a bunch of cheating to kind of actually create the game mechanics within the Arrow system. But it was these toggle switches where you'd kind of like have a hazelnut coming down like a cream, mountain. You'd have to click a little arrow or like a block to kind of get it to go in the right direction. And ultimately, you try to have to get this hazelnut through the entire contraption and get it into the cup for the sundae ice cream. So what people got to do is they got to do this Rube Goldberg machine. They got to play the game. They got to interact with it, but they also got to learn what was in the sundae. How do you make it? Why is it special? And then we brought in things that were specific to Ben and Jerry's, like the windmills, to tell their like sustainability story. And finally, after you assemble the sundae, you click the button to go have it delivered. So to take it to a delivery page where you could actually go and have your sundaes delivered to your home. So that was a really cool experience for us. They loved it. It was featured at Adobe Max on the main stage with Arrow, which was really cool. And Ben and Jerry's like we're thrilled with it, and it was the first web AR experience that Adobe did with Adobe Arrow.
Yeah, it totally works. Just looking at it, it makes me want to try it, and it makes me hungry for ice cream.
It's still out there. Yeah, totally. I mean, honestly, like that was one of the best parts about the project is all the testing we had to do. So we all had to buy tons of Ben and Jerry's sundaes ice cream, get all the flavors, get a lot of inspiration. And the sugar rush got us through to the end.
I feel you. Okay, all right, moving on. What are we looking at here? Lenovo Shanghai. What's happening?
Yes. So Lenovo has been a partner of ours since basically day one. So Lenovo is a sponsor of F1. They had the VRX featured in the Paddock Club inside of F1. And so what we were tasked to do is create something exciting, a game that people could play with inside of the Paddock Club to kind of show the optics of the Lenovo VRX, but it also had to be incredibly simple. So these are people that are just walking up, they're putting on a headset. Some may have never tried VR before, and they just have to be able to get in, play the game, get the experience, move on, So what we did is we created a virtual reality slot car game. And the cool thing about the slot car game is that all you're doing is you're pulling a trigger and it makes the car move.
Yep. So it's about releasing the right amount at the turns.
That's right. So that's where the strategy piece comes in, and that's where you can actually really start to get it's not as simple as just pulling down the trigger as hard as you can and just making it go around the track. You got to know when to let up and release it, just like a brake. And if you don't, then the car flies off and you get some tires flying at you. But the thing that was really cool about this one as well is that you could play it in this big, virtual slot car racing track in Shanghai Stadium, or you could look up, and we created a stereoscopic view. And in that view, it looked like you're racing in first person in 3D in the actual track. And so that was where I like to watch it from the 3D perspective, but it was a ton of fun. And I think what we did is like basically we had a leaderboard. People were able to put in their name, and they could see their high score, and then they could go to a website afterwards and be able to see how they performed against everybody else from that day. But they kept coming back because it was always a crowd pleaser.
Yeah. And I think the reason for that, I like to quote, I think it's Ben Franklin, one of my favorite quotes. He talks about, if you tell me, I'll forget. If you show me, if you show me, I might remember, but if you involve me, I learn.
Right.
And I think this is the
Yeah.
thing with immersive technologies is you're not telling me, you're not even showing me, you're involving me. I'm involved. I'm in the space. So I'm manipulating the space. So that's why I think it's memorable.
And completely. And that was what we really wanted to evoke as well, is that these are people that would be executives at companies, and you want them to start thinking about, wow, well, I just did this cool game experience, but what else could I use it for? How else could I use it for learning and development? How could I use it for training? And try to get them to, just take it from just a fun experience, but then think about the other practical use cases that they could have in their jobs outside of F1.
Yeah. Okay, so I grew up in Manchester, so I'm curious to see
Mm.
what you did for Manchester City. What's happening here?
Yeah, so this is our latest, and actually, depending on when this goes out, the campaign is still running. I think it's going to be running for at least another week or two. So
Okay.
we'd worked with Man City. We created a in collaboration with OKX, which is one of their sponsors, and they're a crypto exchange. So what we did was we have really gotten into these AI agents or AI avatars. And we use InWorld for that. It's a fantastic platform. You get like 21 toggles. You can create your characters and give them a backstory. And it's really fun to be able to engage with them. So we took 5 different Man City players, and we enabled them with AI. And basically, you can go in there, and it's escape rooms. And so you click on different parts of the room. Each part will give you different clues, so you can learn about Man City to be able to solve the puzzle. But you can also learn about OKX as an exchange platform. And then you can ask the avatars questions to help you solve the puzzles to be able to get out of the room and move on to the next room. So what we kind of tried to do was weave the two worlds together, since it was sponsored by OKX. So for example, like in the strategy room, we would talk about the Man City strategies, but then we'd also talk about crypto exchange and strategies for crypto. So essentially, you would be wanting to influence the people that are coming in, or at least teach them a little bit about OKX without making it heavy-handed, while still making it really focused on the players in the game.
How is the user
Lots of
experiencing
learnings.
this?
Users, yeah, great question. So it's mobile, it's web AR. They deployed it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp. They've got so many people. Like, I think even the promo video that they put on Instagram had like 3.5 million views for the promo video we created for it. So it's just so much engagement, maybe more than anything else that we've done before. But it's a full portal. You're able to manipulate the portal through gesture, and then going through the portal, you can click on the different interactive elements. The things that were very interesting about this is we had worked with AI avatars in the past, which were fictional characters. It's a whole nother there's a whole nother level of constraints when you're working with real people and trying to make sure that they say things that are brand appropriate and real for their backstories. Because you can imagine everybody's asking them every question you can possibly imagine. So that was something that we had to go through, and not to mention all the legal hurdles we had to jump as well.
Very interesting. Very cool insights. Okay, one more. I'm
Yep.
looking at Paris. So what's happening here? Paris pavilions.
This one I'm thrilled by, because I think what we've been one of the biggest barriers to location-based augmented reality was accessibility. And how do people access this content when they're out in the real world? Typically, it had to be a QR code, right? Or it's too awkward to try to have like, oh, I find the URL on Instagram and I click on the URL in the right place and then I localize. Like it's too many points of friction to be able to get to it. So we Google came to us, we partnered with Google, and we were the first partners to launch um, AR integrated into Google Maps. So this is with Live View and Street View. So we had 2 points of activation inside of Paris in before the Paris Olympics. And what we wanted to do was bring the story to life of this the World Expo from the 1900s for Paris, so people could go back and see what these pavilions look like across the Seine from the 1900s. And this goes back to why augmented reality. Well, you could go walk down the streets and be able to see what did it look like in the 1900s in Paris and go relive that moment. So that was creating points of interest inside of maps that people could find while on their way to something else. They could find it. They could click the live view, localize, and actually see the experience in live view. And then we did the same thing for the Eiffel Tower. And there was a contest where there was different versions of what the Eiffel Tower could have been. And so we brought that to life in augmented reality. So people hold up their phone to the Eiffel Tower and they can see these designs of what the Eiffel Tower could have been come to life. So you can imagine from a storytelling component, brands, educational, like all these moments that are now easily accessible with Google Maps, just from a click with inside of the app itself. One last part to it, which is like I think still maybe the coolest part, is the Street View element. So most of us have tried Street View. It's Google's Map the World. And we're always talking about what's the metaverse. And I was like, well, to me, I was like, it's the Street View element. It's all mapped. The whole world is mapped. And I was like, now with Street View, people can access it from anywhere. So I was like, whoa, this is so cool, Tan. Let me share with you this Eiffel Tower experience. I send you a link. You can now go into Street View and then actually experience it yourself as if you were there.
So without being in Paris, I could see it from here.
Exactly. So only on mobile now, but you could imagine in a future, maybe with head-worn, where that could also get pretty interesting. But just imagine like all these storefronts, all these places that can now be activated with augmented reality, with these virtual scans of the real world that all exist with inside of maps. So I think it was a pretty big evolution announcement, with inside of immersive. And definitely excited for it to take off, because right now it's just Singapore and Paris, but there's going to be some more cities coming soon, so I hear.
Last question. I think you kind of answered it earlier. I was going to ask, a lot of examples, use cases that we see with immersive tech, with AR, VR, is still in like marketing, advertising, entertainment, gaming fields. I'm wondering, do you see progress in using these technologies in industries outside of entertainment?
Totally. I mean, my start was in head-worn. So I got my start working at a company called ODG. We were making glasses, and they were making them for government, but particularly we were using it for enterprise. And at that time, nobody was really using it for marketing. It was using it for how do you more efficiently create training or checkpoints for a wire harness for a Boeing wing, or how do you train someone for a spinal surgery in healthcare, and how do you do it a virtual overlay on top of it? Everything was enterprise related. It was all around training or assisted reality, which was I'm going into a place and I don't know how to fix this thing, but I can get a virtual overlay, or you can assist me by putting the virtual information on the areas I need. So I think today that's still really one of the bigger value adds of augmented reality is solving these big problems, training, assisted reality. But I think that like it is still one of those things for buyer confidence. I think putting the couch in your room and making sure it fits, it's been done, for the last 15 years, but it's still like I still use it all the time. I don't always use augmented reality marketing experiences, but I definitely use the ones that are more practical. And I think what we are always trying to think about and up our game for is that why augmented reality, and really making sure that it gets beyond just it being another advertisement or commercial, but something meaningful, and making sure that we're telling stories in a new and exciting way. And we're figuring it out. It's still a new medium, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah, and I think there's an argument that the last, say, 30 years of internet was the actual transition period, because that's not what,
Yeah,
instinctively we're not, that's not what we're designed to do, is to look at this 2D screen. Instinctively
right.
we're spatial creatures. So maybe that was the temporary thing, and we're moving more towards the thing we're really supposed to experience.
Totally. I'm with you on that. I think that's where things are going to get really interesting.